So I just got here to Dynasty Auto in Orlando. Gonna be tuning a race car today. Race BRZ actually. So it competes in a certain class. It's got an air restrictor on it. It's got to be pretty much a stock motor. It does run 100 octane. It does have some higher compression pistons in it and some headworks. So we might make a little bit more. They're having some cam issues right now, so we're gonna mess with the cam timing a little bit. I don't know if you noticed, but got my tuning shoes on, so we're ready to send it. So I just got the base map loaded up. I got myself worked into this thing. I hate getting it out of race cars. Like I said, the changes since this motor has last been tuned is it has been rebuilt with some headwork and higher compression pistons, so we have raised the compression quite a bit. So I pulled a significant amount of timing in the high load area because it is pretty aggressive for 100 octane. So I pulled a good amount of timing and pretty much the whole way through it, but more up top. I also was a little less aggressive on the cam phasing because they decked a little bit off the cylinder heads, and we don't need to be quite as aggressive. You can apparently hear the cams really working up at high RPMs. So we pulled a little bit of cam phasing, pulled a little bit of timing. I'm actually not going to go straight to wide open throttle because I am kind of afraid that this thing might be picking up a little knock in the mid-range. Even after pulling a couple degrees, just with all this extra compression. So I am just gonna kind of do some light half, three-quarter throttle pulls in multiple gears just to kind of see if we're picking up any kind of knock at all in the mid-range first, and then we'll do some fourth, fifth gear wide open throttle pulls. So I accidentally forgot to record the first pull I just did, but even after pulling a few degrees, actually quite a few degrees here, it still ended up picking up a little bit of feedback knock and pulling 3 degrees right in this spot. So it is going to need some timing work pretty much the whole way around, it's looking like. Not a big deal, I knew it was going to be the case most likely, but it's going to take quite a bit of it looks like. Alright, so when they first put the motor back together, they just kind of threw it on the dyno on the old tune, and clearly it wasn't running very well. It did 163 and 142. Just kind of cleaning up a couple things in there. It did 11 more horsepower and 8 more pounds of torque. It's still pretty low for 100 octane, even though this dyno does read significantly lower than everything else in the area, and it's probably going to make more than any other dyno. It's still a little pretty low. Again, it did pull like 3 degrees through here, so that's what this little dip is. It's going to make a lot more. So I just cleaned up some timing. I just did a little bit more cam phasing, messed with the fueling calibration up above like 4,000 RPM a little bit, and we're flashing it. So we'll do a second pull here in just a minute. So we made literally 1 more horsepower and about the same torque. So whatever we were doing differently down here, which I believe was just cam phasing, helped us out. The AFR was much closer. This is 12 flat. Well, this liner here is 12, so it came a little leaner here in a couple spots, but We're shooting for mid-12, especially because this is 100 octane. Even 12.6, 12.7 would be okay. So we're gonna keep pulling some fuel and keep doing some cam phasing and adding a little timing and making more power. So I ran out of time on Friday, so we're back here at Dynasty, flashing another map, working on this BRZ race car. We think the reason it might be a little down on power is it could possibly be picking up some free ignition. So we're going to mess with some injection angle a little bit here and try and see if we can get the injection angle to come in at a slightly different time and see if we can get some of those numbers up. If that doesn't seem to make a difference, I did get some Pure Power ethanol. Pure Power ethanol is E85 that's blended with a race fuel instead of blended with 87 or 89 like most pump E85 is. So it's guaranteed a minimum of like 107 octane and usually tests between like 85 and 90% ethanol. It's really, really good stuff. So I got a few gallons of that. We are going to throw a little bit of that in if I cannot get the power up with the injection angle. So yeah, 3.5 gallons of that, and between the two we should know what's going on with this thing. We might end up having to pull the motor out and have to do a little bit of head work on it, but we'll know that in a little bit here. So let's get this thing going. So this is what we were doing last week, which is 181, which is barely more than a stock one of these will normally make. Normally, when I had my 2017 BRZ, it baselined at 177, and I got it up to about 187-ish bone stock. Now today, the pull I just did with just adjusting the injection angle a little bit, was actually made 2 less horsepower. I don't know why it's not calibrated these two correctly. I don't know, that's something different. But anyways, something happened with the calibration here, so that's why the graphs are different. But it made 2 less horsepower actually. So I'm gonna try a little bit more with some injection angle. If that doesn't make a difference, then we're going to throw a gallon of that Pure Power E85 in it. But it sounds like something's going on with the cylinder heads and this thing is just not breathing correctly. So it looks like the motor might be coming out later today apparently. So let's do a couple more pulls and see what's going on. Alright, so I'm on my way home from Dynasty. Unfortunately, we could not finish tuning the BRZ. It appears that there could be a couple things going on, but it all seems cylinder head related. Looking at a few of the logs and some of the live data, we determined that it's running the variable valve timing we're telling it to, but it will have quick spikes and quick dips, almost like the oil control valve that controls the VVT is sticking. The car that the cylinder heads came out of did end up spinning a bearing, so we think there could be a lot of bearing material either in the oil control valves themselves or in the cam gear actuators or something like that that's causing the VVT to stick. The other thing is they did some of the headwork a little bit differently than how they normally do them apparently, and I guess the technician was told that they were machined and everything was set, the valve lashing and everything was set to where it should be. The main technician normally, Carlos, likes to do all of that himself, and he took the shop's word for it, which isn't his fault, but we believe that something's incorrect with that valve lashing possibly. So he's pulling the engine out later today or tomorrow morning and is going to start tearing it down. So we're going to have to do some head work on that and reassemble it and get back to it. We tried messing with some injection angle because we thought it might be getting a little bit of pre-ignition and causing the exhaust valves to overheat and just overall killing power. So we messed with injection angle a little bit and it didn't make any difference. And we also threw in a little bit of that Pure Power race blended E85, and that did not make any difference as well. So it's clearly something going on in the heads. Like I said, especially with looking at the logs, you can see that something's going on there. So Carlos is going to get that done, and we'll go back and finish it hopefully in the next week or so. Now, stay tuned, and you'll get to see it all done.